Personal story segment tonight. There's a very interesting new book out called Primetime Propaganda. The author, Ben Shapiro, graduated cum laude from Harvard Law, of all places. And he has documents that the American TV industry often inserts liberal messages in some of the most successful programs. I talked with Mr. Shapiro last week. So let's take Family Ties first.
Well, I mean, this was a fun one. I spoke with Gary David Goldberg, who was the creator of Family Ties. The guy who's very liberal, you know, spent his youth kind of being a hippie, says he doesn't remember years at a time. And what he ends up doing is creating a show where the villain is supposed to be Alex P. Keaton.
McGovern, Muskie, McCarthy. You guys really knew how to pick the winners, didn't you?
So the conservative Michael J. Fox character, he comes across, but he's kind of a lovable villain.
Well, but it was accidental. So Michael J. Fox is just so damn charming.
With Alex, I did not think I was creating a sympathetic character. I mean, those were not traits that I aspired to.
The original intent of the comedic screenplay was to portray the conservative kid as a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, that was in fact, he actually told me that when in the writer's room, generally for a comedy, you have several acts. The last act is where you have the denouement, where everything comes to an end. For the denouement, they left a card on the writer's board that said, Michael J. Fox apologizes. They just left it up there because they knew he'd be conservative for the whole show, and then at the end, he would learn his lesson.
I respect the fact that you're standing up for your beliefs, even if I don't agree with them.
This is a mistake that liberals keep making. They keep putting conservative characters on TV thinking this will be the villain. And then it turns out that the American public is looking for somebody and they resonate to them.
You know, Ben, that's exactly what happened with me. Exactly right. So what's the deal with Happy Days?
Monday, Happy Days.
I spoke with Bill Bickley, who was a producer on Happy Days, and he said that when he was a writer for the show, he was trying to subtly insert anti-Vietnam War messages in Happy Days.
I had a whole subtext for Happy Days. I had a literary approach that if you really look for it, and I'll tell you what it was, I had Vietnam in there.
According to Bickley, the idea was that here you have the Cunninghams and everybody's getting along and everything's just hunky-dory, late 50s, early 60s, everything's just wonderful, right? But in the background, looming, is the shadow of the Vietnam War. And so when they're sitting around talking about how wonderful life is and our children will never have to go to war, no, they will. They'll have to go to war and they'll be killed there, right? So the whole thing is supposed to be under the shadow of Vietnam. And this is what's going on in their kind of delusional brains.
Well, it's made our generation different, more serious. Not that I don't like having fun.
Did you see that watching some episodes of Happy Days?
No, I
didn't see it.
I mean, there's one episode in particular that he cited where Howard and Marion sit around talking about, isn't it wonderful that our children will never have to go to war? And he says, I picked out that line. I specifically wrote that line for that purpose.
Like I always say, you live fast, you die young, you leave a good-looking corpse.
All right, let's move on to perhaps the best sitcom of all time, Mary Tyler Moore. What was the liberal message ingrained in that program?
Mary Tyler Moore, according to Alan Burns, who is the guy who was the co-creator of the show, was supposed to be, it was a newfangled take on feminism. It was really the first overt feminist move into primetime television.
Sometimes I get the feeling that I'm making it on my personality instead of my ability. That's a problem I've never had. Beat you to it, didn't I?
He took somebody who was the prototypical Donna Reed wife, right? I mean, Mary Tyler Moore had been Dick Van Dyke's wife on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and he brought her forward. Originally, they wanted her to be a divorcee.
Not only is Mary still single, but she's become a real career gal.
The network execs nixed that. Instead, she ended up being a single woman, and she was supposed to be, you know, you're going to make it after all, meaning you don't have to get married, you don't have to have kids, you can have a fulfilling life on your own. That was the whole message. Now, at that time, you know, certainly there's some value to that message. I mean, I'm all for career women, but there's no question that it was supposed to be a liberal message, and it was supposed to be a slap in the face to conservative America at the time as well.
Finally, the 70s show was put together by Marcy Carsey. And you interviewed Ms. Carsey, who freely admitted what?
Well, what she said was that I asked her about the pot-smoking element of that 70s show, right? If you watch that 70s show, there's this very famous kind of sequence in every show where there are four of the characters sitting around, and the camera kind of swirls around them as smoke emanates from the center of a table, and it's clear they're supposed to be smoking pot. And I asked her about that because there was some controversy, right? These are teenagers smoking pot. There are never any bad consequences to it. She said, we thought that was just funny and something that we ought to put on TV, and she actually said, apparently, to the network, if you don't allow us to show pot smoking on TV, we'll just walk away with the series.
Honestly, you guys, this is a problem for you. We certainly understand, and we just won't do the show.
So she wanted that message to get out there above any comedic benefit.
Yeah, but just because it was so fun and so realistic, and this is sort of their thing, right? Everything has to be realistic. But what do they mean by realism? They mean what they've experienced in their own lives. They live in an echo chamber, so everything that happens in their life is supposed to reflect everything that happens in America. But as we all know, there's a real gap in American life. I mean, people in New York and people in L.A. don't live the same way as Birmingham, Alabama.
And finally today, I guess Glee would be the show that promotes the liberal message the most.
Absolutely. I mean, Glee is just atrocious. I mean, and I say that in every sense of the word, mainly because it's a show that's directly marketed to the high school musical crowd. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? And it's written by the people who wrote Nip Tuck, which is one of the dirtiest shows in cable history.
When you stop striving for perfection, you might as well be dead.
Well, I've seen the liberalism in Glee. I have to tell you an interesting story, though. I went on the set of Glee with my daughter, who loves the show. They couldn't have been nicer to me. All of them. It was amazing. Even Lynch, Jane Lynch, and then Matthew Morrison actually sat with Fox News at the Correspondents' Dinner. They're really good people. So it's not the actors. It's the writers.
Well, that's right, Ash. I mean,
and the creators.
Yeah, I mean, the actors don't write their own lines.
Right.
And the truth is that the writers are very nice people also. I'm not saying they're untalented or they're mean. It's just they're very liberal and they live in their own world.
Across.
Absolutely.
All right. Are there any conservative programs in America?
I would say that American Idol is a basically conservative program because the idea is if you stink, you're not making the finals.
Scotty McCreery!
Right? It doesn't matter your background.
Competition.
Yeah, competition. The Apprentice. I mean, there are a lot. Reality TV, by the way, I think the explosion of reality TV is actually a reaction to the liberalism of scripted.
All right, Ben. Good book. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.